Yeah, good morning. Thank you. I am extremely excited to have been invited to represent a state I love so much, Himachal. The village I have made my home for the last 12 years, Gunehar, and the 4tables project. It is great that this edition of the webinar is focusing on a few smaller, lesser known destinations because the larger ones are already well known. And I think after COVID, we must reassess the entire travel experience anyway, focusing more on smaller groups, small places, etc. For me, Himachal is a state of villages, nature, mountains, streams, forests, and the people who live here. In our case, that is the 4tables project, our philosophy has, even before COVID, always been to step away a little bit from crowds and mass tourism. And the experiment that is the 4tables, I find, is a pilot project to see how we can develop consciousness among travelers and people of the hospitality industry for smaller places like Gunehar, how we can create a destination in such a way that it puts a focus on a place without adversely affecting the basic structures of the place and its people. Gunehar itself, though close to a growingly popular tourist destination, remains relatively untouched by large groups, and maybe this is also because of the arts. Today, many people are getting to know us as an art village, but again, I think that imposes a certain type of marketing stamp on it, and I'm not sure that's the way forward. Well, first of all, let's start at the beginning. How to get here? Gunehar is in Kangra district of Himachal Pradesh. The airport is close to Dharamshala, which is also the administrative center. From the airport, you may take a cab to Bir Billing, or if you're adventurous, jump on a local bus. I hope that is possible soon. But what I find most beautiful is our very own little toy train, which would take you along the majestic Dhauladhar to the small railway station of Ehju. From here, Gunehar is just 6 kilometers away. On this map, you can see where we are, roughly 70 kilometers from Dharamshala on top and Mandi in the bottom. The area has become known as Bir Billing, though actually this rather large valley consists of many beautiful small villages set among fertile agricultural land, tea fields, and forests. The area has been a destination for those interested in Tibetan Buddhism for decades now, and recently also because of paragliding. Our village, Gunehar, is at the eastern end of the valley. You can see that in yellow, just 2 kilometers away from Bir town. To give you an idea of our own village and its surrounding, please let me show you a short film which was taken from the air. The man who is singing is singing one of our village songs, the hill song, an 80-year-old man who was part of one of our music projects. And this house that you see was part of one of our projects, art projects, but I'll be talking about that a little later. So, though we are only 2 kilometers away from Bir, only 4 buses come to our village daily, but we still have a very proud signboard. The village has a population of about 3,000 people stretched over a relatively large area. As opposed to many other villages and small towns in Kangra, Gunehar is unique because its inhabitants are homogeneous Gaddi migrants with a sprinkle of Bara Bengalis mixed in. Both Gaddis and Bara Bengalis originally lived in the interiors of the Himalayas. They settled here from places which are even today difficult to reach, such as from villages in Chamba district and from as far away as Kinnaur. Usually, these are very high altitude and cold areas and cut off during the winter months. Gaddis and also Bara Bengalis are originally semi-nomadic shepherds, but today most villagers have given up that lifestyle and they have become settlers. Some people work as employees or wagers or small business owners, and generally people are relatively well off. In this picture, which I took just recently, I find funny that a group of sheep are being moved through our village by Gaddi people from Chamba, and the person on the scooter, who is also a Gaddi but from our own village, is on his way to his day job. The reason the people settled here was because they found fertile land to cultivate and temperate climate, so they can harvest both wheat in winter and rice in monsoon. The village saying is that whatever the paid occupation of the villagers, they are first and foremost farmers. To them, it is a matter of culture and pride. After all, that is why they left their homeland and settled here. So before I start talking about the 4tables project itself, I would like to say something about my fellow villagers, because when I'm asked why I moved here, people presume that I am some sort of a social worker, but the truth is the villagers don't need any working upon. What I really love about the people here is their sense of dignity. They are grounded in a solid psychological knowledge of their own worth. In all these years, I've never found them submissive in any way, but also never arrogant. So it is very easy to live with them as an equal among equals. Now I'm going to talk about the 4tables project, which has become synonymous with the village. This is, of course, because we have very consciously held all our events within the boundaries of Gunehar, and the village has been part of the process every step of the way. But first of all, let me tell you a bit about our own history. The 4tables was started in 2008 as an art cafe and restaurant. Funnily, at that time, there were hardly any tourists around here, and the 4tables was the first and only cafe in the entire area. And what I mean by the art in the art cafe is that I had turned the space into a modern art gallery, hoping to establish it as a meeting point for artists. Unfortunately, there were not many artists around in the valley, and there still aren't. So in 2012, the concept for the first event, Shop Art Shop, was developed. The idea was to have contemporary artists envision a piece of work they would want to create in the village, but without having been here first. The most interesting projects were invited for a month in 2013 to work in different empty shops across the lowest part of the village. The interaction of the artists with the villagers and the reaction of the villagers to the artists and their work became an overarching theme. It started with the villagers giving us their empty shops for free so that the projects could be spread across the entire village. The first edition of Shop Art Shop was surprisingly a huge success with villagers, but also surprisingly with people from the entire valley and in fact from further afield. The first week was organized as an art festival with theater, music, concert, film screening, cultural programs, and many such things. And so I would like to just show you a short video here for an impression of that festival. Yeah, the scene depicted here is from the closing ceremony of the first edition of Shop Art, which was held in the village square. And as you can see, we have taken certain clips from it to make a short advertisement clip for the third edition of Shop Art. Over the years, we have held 3 editions of Shop Art Shop and 2 editions of the exhibition in the woods, which was literally held in the forest land of our village. Most of the expenses, including to host the artists, were covered through the income from the cafe and our Mud House Boutique Hotel, which we had inaugurated in 2014. So in a way, the money that comes in through our guests goes back to the village through such events. Now I'd like to show you a few short slides about the art process. Artists are given or they choose a space which they turn into temporary studios. The idea is that these so-called art shops are kept open daily and worked in so that villagers and visitors can become part of the process. Though most of the art is what is called modern, this way the creative process and the artworks get demystified. The artists work on their original proposals with materials and spaces they find in and around the village. This is one of the works created by the artist Elena Pereira from Bangalore. Often, artists collaborate with villagers, draw their stories and ideas from them, and incorporate these into their work. This artist here is Pramila Chaudhary from Ahmedabad. And this was a fashion project with designer Rema Kumar, in which the village girls became fashion models for a night. As you can see, our definition of art is rather broad. And in all, over the years, we have done over 40 such different projects in the village. So, well, the whole event becomes kind of a joint venture between the 4 tables, the artists, and the villagers. And when the final open art festival comes, which the villagers call their Mela, the visitors start arriving and everybody in the village are extremely excited and proud. But then everything in the village goes back to normal, as if nothing had ever happened. This is the part that I find interesting. When visitors come during these times, they can find some traces of artworks around the village. And we have set up an art gallery. On the right-hand side, you can see the entrance to showcase some of the work that has been done here over the years. But what they are really surprised about is that they can't find the famous art village, because that anyway is only a perception. In normal times, our village is extremely laid back and charming, extremely pretty also, with people going about doing everyday things. People are very open if you show genuine interest in them, but sometimes wary of urban pretensions. It is easy to get to know them, visit their homes, learn about their lives, and take part in their festivities. Though we are just a few kilometers away from busy tourist hangouts, the village has preserved its very own rhythm. And then where the village ends, nature begins, and it is easy to go on short treks in the vicinity for half day, 1-2 days, to the river to plunge in one of the many natural cold pools, or deeper into the mountains and forests, camping overnight within the ruins of deserted villages, for example. As always, there are hardly any tourists around. Gunehar can also be used for longer multi-day explorations of the Himalayan interiors, because the old caravan route and the shepherd's trek passes exactly through this village. But this should never be done without proper guidance. The old caravan and shepherd's trek over the 4,600 meter high Thamsar Pass to the unique village of Bara Bengal is a strenuous but fulfilling 10 days round trip. Here too, you will never hardly meet a tourist. So this ends my presentation, though there would be a lot of things more that could be said, but because of time restraints, I will stop here. I would suggest that you simply come and visit the place and see for yourself how beautiful it can be. What I do want to stress is that if you take the time to get away from the typical tourist attractions and to typical tourist activities, a whole new world can open up to you. As one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century said, the world of the small but beautiful things is what touches us the most. You will see that also in the presentations of my friends Ankit and Michael and Devanshe. Just to wrap up, a couple of practical questions. Gunehar is a good place. It's not out of the area. Gunehar can be a good base for trips to the entire Bir area, including for paragliding, visits of local market, temples, and monasteries. Places of interest such as Mandi, Baijnath, Palampur, Dharamshala, McLeodganj, Kangra, etc. are easy to reach by cab or by car during a day trip. Generally, it is easy and safe to get around here. Hired cabs are abundant, and you can also rent out scooters or bicycles in Bir. And you are welcome to visit us, the 4tables project in Gunehar. Hang out in our cafe, which is a meeting point. Occasionally, we show some films and have discussions and music concerts. You are also welcome to stay either in our camping site or in the mud house hotel I mentioned earlier. We also have in the village a couple of two small guest houses, the summer home and the Sweta guest house in the market itself. There are just a few shops, but you can get some basic supplies also. And there are two places where you can have, I would call them chai shops, where you can have a Maggie, maybe ask them to make you some rice dal or even a good chicken curry. But beyond that, Gunehar still does not have any infrastructure, tourism infrastructure. If you want to contact us, here are our details. And now I'm going to pass you over to send you over, let me say, to Kulu Valley, where there is a charming national park called Himalayan National Park, and Ankit is awaiting you there. Thank you very much. Hi, Ankit, take over.